Hey guys, this is Jon Blau at the Herald Times. This is Jeremy Price, and that's Chris Holtman still talking over the loudspeaker. They play him over the on the big board in the middle of the court in the rafters.
There might be 10 people sitting here watching this press conference
There's
because most of them left with about 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, I mean, there's about 20 people mingling on the hardwood. We're going to try to talk over this. So what was the final score, Jeremy? I don't even remember. It was 68 to 59?
68 to 59.
Yeah, IU lost. It
wasn't that close.
It wasn't that close. There was some points scored at the end there, and it was typical IU on the road, basically.
Basically, yeah.
Turnovers in the first half, 9 of them kind of killed them. They were lucky to be down 31 to 22 going into the half because Devontae Green hit basically a half-court shot at the buzzer, and out-rebounded, and I think the word Archie Miller used was housed on the glass,
They got housed.
which he said was probably the first time all season they got housed. I think it was 11 to 4 on the offensive boards. It was actually 9 to 1 at one point. So, I mean, they were getting absolutely dominated there. And then just some kick-out threes for the Buckeyes, just a lot of them in the second half. And it seemed almost reminiscent of the non-conference season, some of the perimeter defense we saw where people were just getting blown by and then kick-out threes. And so a lot that IU has to work on, and I guess they're kind of lucky that there's a bye week coming up here.
Yeah, it's a good time for the bye week because there's no doubt this team has to sort of regroup and take a good, long, hard look at itself and where it's going and what it wants to accomplish because the last 2 games have not been a step forward in any way, shape, or form, really. As a matter of fact, you mentioned that first half today. If you go back to the second half at Penn State, I believe over those 2 halves, Indiana was outscored 67-43, if I figured it up right. And just some really, really ugly basketball in those 40 minutes. And the second half was a little better today, but I mean, honestly, it really felt like that game was over in the first half. You just didn't feel like Indiana had anything to come back, and they didn't.
Yeah. And the exact words Archie Miller used were interesting in the post game because I don't know how much I want to talk about the actual game itself because it was just so bland. Was that we've just kind of come to a split in the path here, and we've come down to this point. We've reached this point, and he used the word slow deterioration to describe kind of just the lack of physicality over the last 2 or 3 games. It's just been dropping off bit by bit by bit until they've reached this point. I guess how concerning is it that they've reached this point?
It's very concerning, the fact that he's talking about physicality. Rob Finney was asked about that post-game. He doesn't think it's so much the physicality, but he says we do have to play harder. Well, I'm not sure that's any better. As a matter of fact, that's arguably worse. And they go hand in hand. So the fact that this team recognizes and realizes that it's not playing hard enough or not putting forth the effort necessary. The coaching staff realizes it. That tells you where things are at. It also tells you that I'm not sure there's not a bit of a, I don't know what you want to call it, schism within this team, that you've got sort of a group of players that realize that they need to play harder and do more and make more of an effort, and you've got a group of players that are just kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, mailing it in at this point. And that's where, to me, it's on Archie Miller to figure out who's going to give the effort, who's not. And, we've talked about shorten the rotation, not shorten the rotation, all those things for a couple of weeks now. We're kind of getting down to brass tacks here. If your push comes to shove, if the goal is to win now, then some people might need to sit.
Yeah, it's just he used the words I think he used for Devontae Green at one point, which was that you can't practice soft to play hard. So it means, I guess he's been seeing it in practice a little bit too. I guess this is going to be a really rough week of practice. You would think if you're trying to instill this back into this team. And Race Thompson obviously missed the game again. I feel like he's one of those guys who brings that. Maybe you hope he gets healthy. And then Rob Finney was very blunt, saying, "Yeah, we just don't play as well away from home. A lot of teams play better at home, and we get that energy from home. At least they're going to be home, I guess, against Purdue. But I guess there's a certain toughness of the team that you have to develop to be able to play better on the road."
Yeah, to me, that's an easy excuse, and that's part of where this team is mentally. That they're not strong enough to, when things start to go bad, they just go, "Yeah, it's on the road. We're just not going to win on the road." It's the way it is in the Big Ten. There's just sort of like a a resolution or a giving in at that point. And that's what it seems like with this team. When they hit adversity, they're just not strong enough to fight through it. They don't really have the confidence or the belief in themselves to fight through these kind of situations when they're not at home. At home, yeah, it's great, big comeback against Maryland, whatever, survive the Michigan State comeback and sort of push back at the end or whatever. But on the road, it just, that's an excuse if that's why you're doing it. And it's why, what I wrote about today is from what we've seen of this team, which doesn't seem to know who or what it is. I think what we know is that, one, they're mediocre, because mediocre teams are the ones that are so roller coaster up and down like this team is. And secondly, they're just mental midgets, for lack of a better term, that they're just not mentally strong enough to overcome adversity at this point.
All right, so I guess we'll take a week break and hope that they find themselves.
Yes, well, you need to hope that Race Thompson gets healthy, get him in the rotation. And two, if I was going to pick a positive, I guess, out of this game, it's Jerome Hunter's performance once again. Obviously was sick and didn't play at Penn State, and they definitely missed him on Wednesday night. Yeah, Wednesday night. Mm-hmm. But much better again today, showed a little something, has continued to evolve and develop, and played a lot more minutes in that second half, and is starting to show some things, not only the three-point shot, but had a couple drives to the basket. I think still got to work on that finishing and that pull-up and, going off 2 feet instead of trying to, force something up on the run or whatever. But those are things that kind of come with playing time and experience, and that's kind of where he's at right now. But I think if there's one silver lining, it's for this team right now, it's the development of Jerome Hunter.
Yeah, because he's just so important in terms of what he can bring to the floor. I mean, you notice it when Justin Smith is on the floor. He's not a guy who can really hit that, three when they swing it over and he's wide open. Jerome Hunter's a guy who can hit that three. And so, I don't know in terms of what you do there, but I mean, I feel like if Jerome continues to develop, that's just another element that adds to this basketball.
It does, and it gives you a little more flexibility in terms of options, particularly if you want to go small and play Justin Smith at the 4 and Trace Jackson Davis at the 5, or if you need to sub somebody else in at the center spot for Trace, but play Justin at the 4. Jerome Hunter's a guy that you're not giving up much in size, obviously 6'7", big wingspan, capable of rebounding the ball well. And those things, but much more of an offensive threat on the perimeter than Justin Smith is when he's playing the 3. So, gives you some options, some versatility, I think.
All right, so we're going to stop talking now and hit the road. Hopefully, you're able to hear some of this.
Stop yelling over Chris Holtman.
Yeah.
And Chris Holtman, why are you talking so long?
He just won. He's
got lots to say.
He's got a lot to say. So, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in a while.